Right now, what is the state of our union? As the dust settles after the president's sweeping address last night, we're going to break down what it could mean for the next 4 years. And next, Rubio's big moment last night overshadowed by, well, that big gulp of water off camera. Can the thirsty senator bounce back? And later, the fight brewing over Chuck Hagel's nomination got downright nasty yesterday. Claws are out here. We're going to show you why some say this has turned into a witch hunt. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and thanks so much for joining us this Wednesday evening, February 13th. Now, the president, as we all know, delivered his first State of the Union of his second term last night, and the focus, it was on the economy, but probably most memorably towards the end on gun violence. And our own senior political correspondent was there. Andrew Whitman joins us with more.
It took a while to get to that highlight of the evening, Rich. 52 minutes into the speech before the president first mentioned guns, but it was the emotional high watermark of the entire address.
It was a simple request that became a powerful moment.
Gabby Giffords deserves a vote. The families of Newtown deserve a vote. The families of Aurora deserve a vote.
In his State of the Union address last night, President Obama said lawmakers don't have to support his measures to stem gun violence, but at the very least, they need to take up the legislation.
In the 2 months since Newtown, more than 1,000 birthdays, graduations, anniversaries have been stolen from our lives by a bullet from a gun.
Kicking off his second term, the president focused the bulk of his address on the economy, and his message was familiar.
To reignite the true engine of America's economic growth, a rising, thriving middle class.
To do that, Mr. Obama outlined several new proposals, including an increase in the minimum wage and reinvesting in clean technologies. He said none of his plans would add a single dime to the deficit.
It is not a bigger government we need, but a smarter government.
But Republicans are skeptical.
Last night, the president offered up more of the same. Higher taxes and more stimulus spending.
Now, last night, the president said that he doesn't believe in a bigger government, that we want a smarter government. Well, Mr. President, actions speak louder than words.
And today, President Obama took his State of the Union message to a North Carolina auto parts factory.
We've come too far and we've worked too hard to turn back now.
And the president's post-State of the Union roadshow continues as the president will try and rally public support for his new proposals with stops in Atlanta and Chicago later in the week. Rich?
All right, Andrew, thank you very much. Let's bring in our panel tonight. We've got a full house here. Vince Casale, former founder, I should say, of the Casale Group, a Republican political consulting firm. If I can spit it out, I make fun of Mr. Rubio. I should be careful myself here. Dominic Carter, of course, political journalist and author. Nan Hayworth, former Republican congresswoman from New York. Richard Brodsky, former New York Assemblyman, senior fellow at Demos, and professor now at NYU. And Andrew Whitman, who you've already met. I'll go around this way. What'd you think last night? A lot of people weren't doing cartwheels one way or the other, but the gun soundbite certainly, I'll do it in TV terms, it was the clip that everybody played.
Exactly. It's definitely going to be the clip that everybody's going to play because of everything he said last night. It was probably the most controversial piece. It's going to be the piece that's going to get the most attention, I think, going forward, outside of all the spending that he's also proposed. But I don't think there was any surprises, and that becomes the most controversial issue. So, of course, that's going to get the most play. And I think it's also going to be the biggest hurdle that the president has to get over to deliver anything he talked about last night.
If there was any reaction, Dominic, to the president's address, how would you categorize it? It seemed like the base was pretty happy with it. Republicans said same old, but I think different constituencies heard what they wanted to hear, right?
Yes. For the base, they were very happy. Republicans, rightfully so, raised the argument of how are you going to pay for this? Ambitious agenda, and the president is now doing what he does best. He's on the road selling this idea, bypassing, if you will, Republicans that may not go along with it.
You know, Andrew, you were there firsthand, and I'm curious. I know they always feed the speech out about an hour beforehand, but before, some people thought he might have taken maybe a more strident approach. Other people said he might get more specific, maybe do a little bit more of an outreach in terms of some debt reduction. He didn't touch it last night. And a lot of people walked away saying, you know, been here, done that, other than obviously the call specifically on gun control.
Well, he hit on a few proposals that he said would help reduce some of the deficit and bring some savings back in. But You know, in terms of a progressive manifesto, for lack of better words, it was fantastic. It was like watching Jordan drive the lane. I mean, he was, if you're a progressive, you're probably poking the guy next to you going, that was fantastic.
What speech were you listening to?
The State of the Union address last night. We'll get to that in a second.
Where were you people last night?
In terms of what this is going to mean for legislation going forward, I don't think it's.
Well, we'll get to
I don't think it's that significant.
What and how he gets it through, but you like it or not?
Bourgeois.
Yeah, I knew that was
I mean, look, put aside what the elites think, including us. Put aside what the pundits think, mainly him. If you listen carefully to the words, there are interesting things. He put entitlements on the table. He said Medicaid, health care, Social Security, the out-year budget problems have to be addressed.
What does that mean?
It means that in the context of not negotiating with yourself on national TV, he has legitimized the Republican critique that it is the out-year expenditures on the entitlements that have to be part of the discussion. He did something very clever. He separated the immediate recovery of the economy from the long-term problem of debt. And he said to the Republicans, if they wanted to listen, I hear you on entitlements, something good will happen. We've got to move forward in those negotiations. That speech, what you folks, you people, sorry, Dominic, were describing last night was nothing like what actually happened. It was a calibrated.
It wasn't an ambitious agenda.
It was
didn't
not
play far to the left.
It was not particularly ambitious. He didn't spend a lot of money. The things the nation needs, like real investment in infrastructure, went unmentioned.
He talked about
what he did is positioned himself for a political battle to get to a compromise where both revenues and spending cuts are on the table.
Do you think how we played the gun issue in terms of all I want is a vote, very clever, or do you think it was capitulation?
Extremely clever. And just keep in mind, when you hear this criticism of his being too outspoken, too direct, for years the critique from the right on him was he doesn't lead, he doesn't get out there, he's not around. Okay, he showed up and you still don't like it? No. He did very well last night. Not that he's right on all the issues, not that the Republicans are wrong on all the issues. He made a speech that set forth a coherent, understandable, and achievable agenda. Give the guy a little credit.
Give the guy a little credit or no?
The president, well, you know, this has always been my point as a Republican who likes to reach across the aisle. The goals that the president expressed for the nation are very appropriate goals in so many ways. Economic growth, the president acknowledged that we need that. Education of every child is extremely important. To have a thriving middle class is something that we should all hope for and work toward. The devil is in how do we get there? And what the dispute that I have respectfully with the president is that the means that he went on to describe will not achieve the beneficial ends that we seek. He described ever more federal intervention in what should be areas that are better handled by the citizens themselves, and that's the fundamental problem.
And the crux is, from the right, too much government. The president's asking for more government.
Just on a practical basis, it's ineffective.
Let me give you the poll numbers and tell me what you think this means for the Republicans. The reaction to the poll, if we could bring it up, guys, 53% of the people asked said very positive reaction, about a quarter, somewhat, and only 22% said negative. On the flip side, when asked about whether or not the president's policies move the country in the right direction, basically 70+% said they are going in the right direction. This is a math issue now, Vince, all right? Everybody can read polls and take away different things from it. My question to you is, are there enough Republicans to say, you know what, let's get some of this stuff out of the way so that I can set myself up and the party can be in a better position for the midterms, and then we can close hard in the next 2 years for what we're going to worry about in 2016? I
think you're definitely correct. There definitely needs to be a big picture strategy going forward. How are we going to get there in 2 years and 4 years? I think what those poll numbers show is exactly what the Congresswoman was saying. I think we all agree of where we need to end up. We don't agree on the roadmap to get there yet. And I think that's where it is. The devil will be in the details in this. And the president is going to go on the road. He's going to sell it. And I'll tell you, he did.
It was a great speech.
I wouldn't say it was a great speech. I mean, he laid things out. He said, based on those poll numbers, all that says to me is he's said the things he needed to say that got the reaction from the public.
One big issue that obviously Richard was very involved in, Dominic, was the issue of equity in America. Gap have and have-nots. I've heard from a lot of people who said, hey, wait a minute. The president kept banging the drum here on, the critics would say, wealth redistribution here, that the rich are going to have to pay a little bit more here, and that we got in bringing up the middle class, the top end's going to have to pay for it. Were you surprised the president talked about that as much with an election in the rearview mirror?
Not at all. I think this president is showing us the real President Obama. Jack it off. Like it or not, he's laying it all out there. And he's saying, these are the things that are important to me. Everything that I do, I'm thinking about my legacy, and I'm going to continue to fight for the middle class. And I think that that's a message that greatly resonates with most of his supporters. It's a no-lose scenario for him.
But don't you think, Dominic, it's a very divisive message? He refers continually to the wealthy. The wealthiest Americans are going to have to pay for this. Most folks I know in the middle class aspire to accumulate a certain amount of resources for their families, for the things and the people they care about, the causes they care about. There's a certain amount of it's not quite It's not quite demonizing the wealthy.
After 30 years of the Republicans redistributing wealth up, all the president is saying, let's go back to the good old days of Richard Nixon when there was a thriving middle class. He did not say the rich have to pay for all of this. He said they have to pay for their fair share. You may disagree as to what constitutes fair share, I understand that. But he did not say we're going to soak the rich to solve all our problems. He gave a balanced and measured approach.
Richard, he's smart enough, as you pointed out, he's smart enough not to use that kind of rhetoric.
He's smart enough to
But
lie.
if you read the subliminal
What
message,
he really
that would
meant
seem
is
to
screw
be
the rich, but he's smart enough not to say it.
We'll keep this going over the break. Now, when we come back, we're going to ask my esteemed panelists, is how's it going to get it done? And with this Congress and this Washington speech now behind us, what's the reality of what can and can't pass? We'll get into that after this.
Our unfinished task to restore the basic bargain that built this country. The idea that if you work hard and meet your responsibilities, you can get ahead. No matter where you come from, no matter what you look like or who you love. It is our unfinished task to make sure that this government works on behalf of the many, and not just the few. That it encourages free enterprise, rewards individual initiative, and opens the doors of opportunity to every child across this great nation.